Okay, thanks. Let's go back to the phones. We'll go to Haley Britsky at CNN.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I'm sorry if this has already been touched on. I've been breaking in and out a little bit, but I just want to clarify because I know there have been a few years, of course, of Arctic strategies. So, what specifically in this Arctic strategy is a little bit different than last year? Are there any major changes or I guess redirections on going forward? What this is going to look like?
I think it's a really important question. The difference is there's several differences. The first is how we articulate the strategic environment. We call out the Chinese involvement in the Arctic region as an area of concern. We talk about Russia's acute threat to us in our homeland within the strategy. We talk about the PRC and Russia collaborating for the first time in this document. The accession of Finland and Sweden to NATO is also new since 2019, which was the last time a strategy was released. And we talk about the undercurrent of climate change, which is impacting all of our activity and all of the human activity that's being allowed to take place in the region. The other thing that's different about this strategy is that we really dive into the ways and means effectively. We really are trying to get after the investments that we need to be able to effectively monitor and respond. We try to be very specific in the domain awareness needs that we have, the communications architecture, the ISR architecture, the weather forecasting, to try to lend some prioritization to resourcing in the region to provide the enabling capabilities for our joint force to effectively operate. And the other big thing, and this is not necessarily in the strategy, is just the creation of my office. It can't be understated how big of a role that is playing in the department in terms of integrating across the Arctic region. This office was created 2 years ago. To integrate across the department is no small feat in general, but certainly in the Arctic region where you have 3 different geographic commands, NORTHCOM, EUCOM, and INDOPACOM, in addition to various services that all have defined equities as well. So I think just having an office that can help not only draft a strategy, but help with the implementation of it and integrating the priorities going forward is the most important differences.
Okay, great. Coming back in the room, we'll go Brandy.
Thank you so much, and thanks for doing this. It briefly mentions that the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy is going to develop a department-wide policy for building enduring advantages in the Arctic. What would that include for the department that it does not have now?
I think that phrase is actually just meant to say that the Undersecretary of Policy will be responsible for implementing the strategy going forward.
Okay. Will there be anything else you can share on an implementation plan or materials or guidance to expand DoD's Arctic presence, like with drones or otherwise?
Well, I think that's what this strategy is all about. It's about creating the roadmap for the capabilities that we need to protect our interests and to ensure that our troops have what they need to operate in the region. Just to maybe flesh out a little bit more of the investments that we've made in the last several years that I think that we're going to continue to invest in throughout the implementation of the strategy. We've really been investing in our people. We recognize that it's an incredibly challenging place to live and to serve in. Many of the locations in the Arctic are remote and austere, and we've been focusing heavily on quality of life improvements for many of our troops that are stationed there. And as of this summer, all service members that are stationed in Alaska will actually have access to cold weather incentive pay for when they're there. They're able to buy cold weather gear for living up there. We spoke a little bit about infrastructure. The Deputy Secretary mentioned some of the investments in our sensing architecture, including in Archer and in NORAD. We're also looking at what kind of infrastructure repair we might need to do due to the changing climate. In particular, at Pudafik Space Force Base, they are heavily impacted by permafrost thaw, and so we have some $7 million dedicated to look at how we're able to mitigate that, including potential hangar repair. And we're working on equipment for our forces as well. The Deputy Secretary mentioned the Arctic Angels that were recently stood up in Alaska. They've gotten the most state-of-the-art cold weather gear in the last several of years. We've also spent some $280 million on cold weather all-terrain vehicles in addition to that cold weather gear. And then we've been really looking at space architecture as well. We've talked a little bit about leveraging commercial space technology, but the Space Force has also invested some $1.8 billion in the Enhanced Polar System Recapitalization Payload, which is a payload that is actually uniquely hosted on a Space Norway satellite. It was meant to launch launched several weeks ago, but it will hopefully launch in the next couple of weeks. That's the first time that we will have a payload on an allied partner satellite. It's helped us save money. It's helped us save about $900 million, and also create a more rapid acquisition process for us, and we'll be providing Arctic communications to our strategic users for the first time. So it's these kinds of unique partnerships that we're looking to really leverage going forward that you will see more of as we go through implementation.
I guess what I'm really trying to understand is immediate next steps. Is there an implementation plan? Is there anything we can expect to see from you guys coming from this strategy? It mentions a lot of continuing assessments, evaluating existing capabilities. So what are some concrete next steps that are coming?
Yes, so one other important point of continuity within our federal government approach to this problem set is that we recently released a national strategy for the Arctic region. That also has an implementation plan associated. There's a whole security pillar to that we are responsible for implementing, and so many of the objectives that we're looking to move forward on are also reflected in that national strategy for the Arctic region implementation plan, which is public. So I would encourage you to go look at that in addition to any kind of publications that we might put out following the release of the strategy. I think we will have an implementation plan. It's unclear if it will be public or not.